my name is Kara. Welcome back to my channel. In 2021, I was diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers Danlos Syndrome. And today, I'm just going to tell you about my story, how I was diagnosed, and what kind of symptoms I was having. So, in my childhood, I didn't really have any major health issues. I was healthy, didn't go to the doctor that much, didn't get sick that much. And then when I became an adult, I started having these like tremors and involuntary movements in my hands and then in other body parts eventually. And I thought it was strange at first, but I kind of brushed it off because I didn't like going to the doctor. So I was just like, oh, no big deal, right? But my family was concerned because we had recently had a family member get diagnosed with Parkinson's. And they're like, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. And I was like, okay, I'll go to the doctor. So I made an appointment with my primary care physician. And I was like, look, I don't even know if this is an issue, if it's something to be concerned about, but my family, like, I just want to figure out if there's something so that way they're not worried anymore. And she goes, well, I think you should go to a neurologist. So I went to the neurologist. And at first he's like, well, you're fine. You're young. You can just deal with it, right? And it's like, well, this is kind of embarrassing to have these movements and people are getting concerned, so I'd like for it to stop. So that didn't help going to him. And I went back to my primary care physician, and she says, well, we'll just send you to another neurologist. We'll just keep going with this. So she referred me to the next one. And the next one that we went to, he seemed like he cared at first. And he's like, this looks like Parkinson's. And he put me on a medication that they use with those patients. But nothing changed during that trial. Nothing got better. Nothing slowed down. It didn't disappear. Nothing like that. And so we went back for the follow-up appointment, and he's like, well, I guess you're fine then. He's like, women are just crazy. They get stressed, and they don't know how to deal with stress, and you're making it all up, and it's just in your head. Don't come back. And we're like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense, because obviously that's not what's happening. And the symptoms were starting to get worse. So I was having weakness and trouble holding on to things and dropping stuff all the time. And at the time, when I started having all these problems, I was a teacher and I just started feeling, way different than how I used to. And I was an avid exerciser. I was walking all the time, and I started taking martial arts lessons. And I was starting to think that, well, maybe if I just get myself into shape, because when I was younger, we weren't really encouraged to exercise or how important exercise was. So I thought, well, maybe if I just get in shape, all these symptoms will disappear. Maybe I'm just super unhealthy because I wasn't active as a child and that wasn't working. I was getting worse. I was having trouble walking. I was getting more fatigued. And I eventually got referred to my aunt's neurologist. And he was like, well, I don't know what this is, but let's run a few tests. So I did an MRI, and that came back normal. And I was having these like seizure-like episodes. So they did an EEG for it, but it was only an hour. And obviously I didn't have an episode during that hour. So when those tests turned out normal, they're like, well, that's it. We're just going to leave it at that. And it's like, well, no, something's still not right because the symptoms were only getting worse. And eventually I was told that I should go to an internalist specialist who could look at the bigger picture of things to see if they could figure it out. So I found one in my area and I made an appointment. And that was the first doctor that actually validated me and what I was going through. And he actually listened and he showed that he cared. And he's like, look, I may not know what this is, but we will do whatever it takes to get you an answer, to get you a diagnosis. And that just felt, that meant the world to me because I wanted someone who could really figure this out and get me an answer because I was getting discouraged and that I wasn't crazy. And I was just, having more and more trouble as the days went on. And he sent out a bunch of referrals to different doctors and specialists. And I started experiencing chronic pain. And I was just like pained, like every evening I was in pain. And I was like concerned about that because even though I was a teacher, no one else was experiencing what I was experiencing. No one else was going home and having pain all night long. And no one else was feeling weak like I was and as tired as I was. And I thought, wow, what is going on? Why am I not getting better? I'm trying to get into shape. I'm trying to exercise and nothing is helping. So I finally went to a rheumatologist, and just before going to the rheumatologist, I did start experiencing the dislocations. It was first my collarbone, and then I started waking up with some of my fingers dislocated. And so I went to the rheumatologist, And I explained to her everything that was going on and how now I was using a walking cane, one of those general walking canes that you see at Walgreens. And she examined me and she knew right off the bat. She's like, I know exactly what this is. And she explained the condition to me and that it was lifelong and permanent and that there was no cure, no treatment, that I wasn't getting better, which was kind of hard to hear because I was walking around with the mindset thinking, all I need is for them to figure out what's wrong. And then I'll be like, there will be something simple. Like, I don't know if it's a pill or some kind of weird, like, quick treatment. And then I'll be all better and everything will be fine and life will go back to normal. But that didn't happen. And I had to learn to accept, the way that life was going to be for me going forward. And I felt validated to finally have an answer, to know that I wasn't crazy, that I really had something. And that's a problem, in the medical world, women especially. Doctors gaslight us and they don't listen and they just think that we're crazy and that we can't have the health problems that we have and that we're hysterical. But that's not the case. We just, we need, we just like with, men or other people, we just need help. We don't want to have these health issues, and when we experience health issues, we want to get better just like the next person. But I had to go home that night and explain to my family, what was going on. And it was just a very confusing time. And I didn't quite understand that it was all like correlation and that the EDS was causing everything, down to the movements and the weakness and everything else. And eventually I found multiple online support groups that helped me understand that. I did end up going to one more neurologist and he said the same thing. He's like, well, you're crazy. Like, if you were told that you were crazy, why can't you accept that you're crazy? And then over time, I learned that it was all connected. The EDS was causing it. And looking back on it, it's like my body was going through such a major change that now I'm not surprised that the tremors and seizure like episodes started happening because, I mean, you go from like this normal person without these issues and now the connective tissues and tendons and muscles are getting looser and looser and the joints are dislocating and all the other stuff that's going on. It's like, wow, like it had to cope somehow, right? And so now I don't have the tremors and seizure episodes as much. I still have them, just not every single day. It's kind of like on and off here and there, but it still happens. But for the most part, I try to do as much as I can to maintain a good quality of life. I'm not saying it's not hard. There are absolutely hard days. I still dislocate my legs a lot. I have to use the crutches to, smart crutches to get around, plus the two wheelchairs that I have for longer distances. But I work full time with a desk job. I hang out with family and friends, and I had to give up some activities like ice skating and roller skating because it's just unsafe with the way I get around. But I find other things to do to enjoy and have fun. So that's my story. But if you have any questions in the comment section, just let me know and I'll try to answer them the best I can.